Hello. Last time I spoke with you, I had just covered War Goddess Togamahime. I've gone over basically what I think you should put on her, and then pretty much immediately after that video dropped, got the announcement that we actually wouldn't be getting her event next, and it would actually be swapped with the Dragon Quest X event, so we'd be getting An2cia next. And then also in JP, they announced the Dragon Quest V hero, anniversary hero, would actually be a breath unit. So it was a very, very well timed video review by me. Definitely didn't become outdated almost immediately, but I still stand by basically what I said in that video, in that she's still fairly niche. She's still definitely not necessary for PvE or anything, and I don't think you should spend gems on her. But since DQV hero is looks to be really good and he's a breath unit, then also that boosts her viability a little bit. So if you did want to build a breath team revolved around those two, then you could do that. But yeah, we had the event swapped around a bit, so we did end up actually getting Lucia first, Archfiend Valeria, and Davie before we ended up getting Toga or Darkonium. And so this video, I might ramble a bit. I'm just gonna talk about some of my thoughts on the current RTA meta, and some mini reviews of these units that have actually come out. So first of all, if we talk about Lucia now, if you see me talking about Lucia at all on the Discord or anything, you'll know that I'm not a fan of Lucia. I think she's good, and I think she's too good for how much skill you need to use it. Like, you can be not skillful at all and do so much work with this unit, more work than you deserve to do, in my opinion, because of how just because she has triple immortal. And I'll be honest, I guess I didn't think about it too hard, because before this unit came out, I really wasn't thinking that she would be as obnoxious as she is, even though I had already looked over her perks and everything. I just thought, well, yeah, she has triple immortal, but you know, just get her to 0, and we have a bunch of units with multi-hits that can hit 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, sometimes with an AoE, so you know, it won't be that difficult to deal with her. And I guess when she's being controlled by AIs, that can be partially true, but if she's being controlled by a human, obviously that becomes way more difficult, because first of all, obviously her stats are amazing. She's an anniversary hero, so she's got a bunch, like, you know, pretty good stats on everything, and she boosts all her relevant stats basically. And so if you do want to kill her, you need to get her health to 0 and then hit her 3 more times after that with an attack that does at least 1 damage. And there's a couple of problems with that. So first of all, you need to have your turn order set up so that you have units that will get her to 0 and then have your multi-hitter going last if you want to kill her. First issue you might run into is that she has a passive that boosts her agility, so therefore if you're not able to do that on turn 1, when turn 2 starts, it's possible that now she's actually faster than your multi-hitter, and so you won't be able to get to 0 and kill the multi-hitter because she'll go in between them. And then she also has a really strong assist attack that heals 30% of the damage she deals, so she can heal herself out of up above 1 HP, up to something like 600, up to 1k, and then your multi-hitter can't finish her off anymore. So she can really screw with your plans to kill her like that, and also at Awakening 3 obviously she gets Wrath, which means that this heals even more damage. So yeah, so she's super obnoxious to kill, and if you fail in any way in your setup to kill her, then she becomes super powered and can one-shot basically most things in the game. She also, there's no way to reliably status her. This should say half resist. Do I not have her? No, I do have that. She half resists every status, so there's nothing you can do to put her out of action in any way reliably. You could. It's difficult for me to say whether this is better or worse than Solos. Obviously, Solos, you're probably thinking Solos is obviously way better because he's immune to statuses. But that also means that you won't ever be tempted to waste, you know, a status going for it. Whereas since she only half resists, you could sometimes maybe think, oh, I'll go for the 30% sleep, the like 30% snooze, and then not land it. So the fact that she has no reliable way to be statused and has triple immortal, it basically means that she is just incredibly obnoxious to kill. If you fail to kill her but do get her to 1, then she's going to absolutely destroy you for it. And I think the way you have to go about killing her is just a lot more complex and has a lot more ways to go wrong than killing Solo, for example, because obviously Solo, he has no way to status, you just have to deal with him through damage pretty much, and he does have damage resistance, but killing him is straightforward. You know, you do 2.4k damage, whatever, and he's gonna die. You don't need to worry about turn order nearly as much. You don't need to worry about having multi-hits nearly as much. And I feel like An2cia, I mean, if you played RTA, you know that she is omnipresent. I don't think we have ever, even solos released, even after PMS's Blossom, Manslayer, we have not seen a unit that is this omnipresent. I don't think I can go for I could play a full 3-hour session sometimes, and she will appear on basically 95% of the teams I fight in every sort of team, from every sort of player, whether they're manual, whether they're auto, whether it's blitz, or whether they're turtling. She fits onto absolutely any playstyle, and it is obnoxious to kill her pretty much every time, unless you have set up your team specifically to deal with her. And even if you have done that, it's obviously not always that simple. We've seen the rise of Bubble Slime, I think, and I think that's due in part because his Blossom had a multi-hit Marshal, so that can finish her off at the end. But yeah, I really don't like fighting her. I don't like the fact that she basically forces you to run a multi-hit. I just don't like. I don't like that. You know, even if she has an off turn, you're fighting a manual player, well, they can set up these spaces which basically give her a 20% advantage. Her whole team a 20% advantage, because they take 10% less damage and they deal 10% more damage. That's a 20% swing. You know, she just does everything. She's obnoxious to kill, and she can kill everything. You know, I do have a very solid win rate, but the fact that you could just play so recklessly with it, and this extends to modes outside of RTA, it extends to GVG and everything in between. You can just play so recklessly with this unit, and it doesn't matter, because she has 3 lives, and she can just, you know, if you get her to 0 HP, 1 HP, and she goes first next turn, well, then she can heal herself back up to, you know, potentially 1k or more, and then, well, then she's not dying again, and she's still got 2 immortal procs remaining. So I think she takes a lot, well, I say a lot of the skill. There's sometimes not a lot of skill involved in Dragon Quest, but I think if there were any, Lucia takes a lot out of it, and I don't appreciate that. So I don't like the fact that she exists. I don't like the fact that she's so good. She'll be getting nerfed in about 2 months from now, because DQV Hero has a breath which kills units through Immortal, just like Pops Madura. But until then, I will continue to moan about how obnoxious she is. And yeah, but you know, she is really good. Obviously, if you like winning, then it makes sense to pull for her, and it feels like every single player in Global pretty much has pulled for her. So yes, I hope you guys are having lots and lots of fun. Next up, we have Archfiend Valeria, which is the unit that actually I decided to pull on. I got this unit to max awake. And I favoured her over An2cia just because I tend to pull units that I think I'll find fun, rather than necessarily the most meta unit. Though I do think she is really strong. If you faced me in RTA in the past month, then there's probably like a 98% chance that you've fought me and I was using her. And I have a solid win rate in RTA with her. But I like units that can pump out really big damage numbers or have like huge damage potential, which is exactly what she has. She has her own self buff of 30% damage, which can stack with oomph buffs and Young Terry spell buffs and everything, so I find it fun, you know, pumping her damage up and just absolutely nuking things. Her kit as a whole, definitely not as strong as An2cia's. An2cia's is definitely a better pick. If I list Valeria's weaknesses first, obviously the first one you can see is she's crack locked. If you're fighting a team that has crack resist, well, Valeria's pretty much not going to be able to hurt them much at all. If they heavy resist, then yeah, she can basically deal no damage to them. Her leadership is pretty specific just to her. There's not really many Dark Lords that would benefit from her leadership that you would really want to pair with her. And status ailment weakness, she's weak to sleep, which is obviously one of the worst status ailment weaknesses you can have. I used to say it was definitely the worst. I would say in the current meta, I could argue that confusion might be slightly worse, just because there's a lot of Fuddle Scrolls floating around now, just because Debaran exists and people always want to have an answer for him. And Lucia exists, and she has an 80% chance stun on anything that's confuse weak. So this is still definitely, it still could be the worst, and it's still second worst if not, because there's still a lot of ghosts running around with snooze, and she can be put out of commission by that. But in terms of the current reality of using her, crack is really, really strong in the meta right now. If you think about who the most popular units are, you've got An2cia, you've got Solo still, You've got Sorrow Manslayer, all three of those are weak to crack, so that's really strong. And most of the other units that are meta, they're neutral to crack. Debrand's neutral to crack, Zenlon's neutral to crack. There's SBH and Edric who are like kind of meta but not really there, they resist crack. We just had Darkonium come out and he resists crack, so that weakens her slightly. But yeah, this is a unit that is fun. Definitely is a strong unit. Like I say, how strong she is pretty much would depend on how strong crack is in the meta at that time. But her damage is really strong. She's fast. She has triple barriers. She passively buffs her attack and defense to triple barriers down here. She does plus 20% above 50%, and max awake she heals her in HP and MP. And she resists crack and frizz herself, which are pretty good resistances to have in the current meta, though having a zap weakness is pretty bad. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this unit, but I can absolutely understand why people pulled on An2cia over her, and Global as a whole seems to have mostly skipped her, either because people spent all their gems on An2cia or just because they think that well, a crack locked unit isn't that useful. And particularly I'd say if you already had Zenlon, then this unit is pretty easy to pass up on. Their kits are pretty similar, except Zenlon also has a typeless multi-hit breath, which is really good in the current meta if you want to finish off An2cia, for example. He has a dual element breath attack, which means that if things are resistant to crack but neutral to frizz, well, still going to deal a decent amount of damage. And his status element weakness isn't as bad as sleep is. So I'd say Zenlon's generally a better pick, generally a safer pick. And so if you did already have him, which a fair amount of people do, but not me, I don't have him to Awakening 3, then she was a pretty easy skip. But she's cute and she has really huge potential, so that's why I like her. If we move on to Davie, now this guy really has been forgotten. I think I've only seen one person with him. I think it was one person. I actually lost to that person. I can't remember what team I was running, but I did actually lose to them. We've got Davie. He has, again, pretty cool kit. He has Snub, Battle Start, reduces damage by 20% for 3 turns, which is cute. He gets the odd turn buffs, attack, defense, agility, and breath potency, because he has a breath attack. He has a heal under 50%, under 70%, sorry, for 50% of his health, and he has a crit rate buff. Weak to charm, which is interesting. Pretty decent weakness to have, though. Now Mystical Giuliante is getting a bit more popular, and now Darkonium's here. A few more people are going to want to run her to counter him, and then soon we get Jinx Jade, who also has a charm attack. So not the worst weakness, but it's not as good a weakness as it once was. It's becoming more widespread units that actually have access to charm. Weaknesses in crack, we love to see that. With every unit with a crack weakness, that's a good sign in my opinion. But yeah, yet another unit that has Sizz and crack weakness, so if you want to run this guy alongside solo or something, or An2cia, then you're going to be stacking up on weakness types. And his kit as a whole, this guy is like the dream, well, kind of the dream counter to Deberan, because he has auto snub. That means Aurora can't touch him, and he has a breath which often confuses. So that means that, you know, every single time he's going to be able to confuse Deberan. Also has the ability to confuse things that can't be fuddled, things like Max Awake Vern, and also can often blind, which could win you some matches if you blind a physical unit. So this is a pretty cool breath. And then he has a multi-hit, which again in this An2cia meta is pretty useful. You could use it to finish her off, or just nuke something down. But generally speaking, if you already have CGM, you already have a breath that's, you know, capable of confusing units with Spell Reflect. You already have a unit that can confuse Deberan. And I think he dropped at a pretty unfortunate time. Like I say, most people will have already pumped all their gems into An2cia by the time this guy dropped. And then you had Darkonium coming out after him. And so, you know, is there really a reason to pull on this guy? Not really. Those two other units are more important. If you have CGM, you don't really need him. Like I say, pretty cool kit, but it's just something that's fairly easy to skip, unfortunately, and I think that's why, well, most people did. But, you know, if it's a unit you get to want to wake, you could definitely have a niche. Like I say, having auto snub is unique so far and could have its place, but it's not quite good enough to warrant pulling over other units. And then we've got to scroll down to find the next one, and then we had Darkonium, who's just released, and I've seen mixed opinions on this guy. Some people that have pulled on him have been disappointed. Some people are really happy with him. If you don't know what his kit is, he's got Supercharge, Restores, uses MP and Tension. That's obviously strong, but can only be used 3 times, bear that in mind. Draconium Light heals HP and removes status ailments. That's really strong. The amount of HP it heals is a lot, and I think he gets buffed by his passive. Yes, it does, so that gets stronger on odd turns, and it can remove status elements from allies, which is also really strong. So if you paired this guy with Debran and he got confused, well, now I can just unconfuse that Debran and he can go massacre something. And then Draconium Ray, absolutely huge martial attack. This obviously isn't a massive AoE, it gets slowly stronger over time with his odd turn buffs, and it can be boosted by tension. And this will do, if it's max awake, it will do about just under 900 to anything without damage resistance, and obviously less to anything with damage resistance. And then Awakening 3 basically gets Dragon Scale, heals 10% of his max HP every time he's hit. And then max HP, extra 100 HP, which is a big deal on a unit that comes with 45% damage resistance, because basically 100 HP equals 200 HP because you take 50% less damage from everything. And so at max awake, this guy has a pretty solid amount of HP. You can pretty much double that to 1600 because of how much damage resistance he has. And then obviously if we look at his resistances, he resists every element, and half resist all status except charm. So that's why you may see an uptick in Mystical Juliantes or Summer Jessicas, because charming this guy and putting him out of commission will be one of the premier ways to deal with him. Me personally, I think he's a super strong unit. He's incredibly obnoxious to kill because all his damage resistance and the fact that he resists basically every element. It means that you always want some typeless on your team, because if you're not running typeless, then you pretty much won't have a way to kill this guy. Because the fact that he has, at max wake, he has 60% elemental resistance and heals 10% on each hit, and has a way to heal about like 800 HP every turn. This guy, if he's not going to die unless you're hitting it with something strong and typeless. Also, we have some decent options for that. We've got Solo, we've got Debaran. Those are about the only two I think off the top of my head, but those two are very strong and very meta, so they're not difficult to squeeze in your team. I think the reason some people have been disappointed with him is because the damage, if you've been used to running Debaran, then this damage isn't quite as good as Debaran's, because Debaran's damage is amazing. But obviously over Debran he has, it's much harder to status, he has no elemental weakness, and his AoE actually can hit more units at a time than Debran's can. I think this is a unit that is going to end up winning more battles by attrition, but the fact that you can't kill him, and after he's accumulated enough buffs, then this does actually start to sting quite a lot. So I'd say this unit on auto, probably not great, but on manual, pretty strong and pretty terrifying, especially if you get some tension boosts. And that's another thing, the fact that this restores his MP and this restores his HP means basically that he can win a drawn out fight versus pretty much almost every unit in the game in a 1v1. He can either store them out of MP or just out heal damage, then heal himself and then damage. And obviously every time you hit him, he's healing 10% as well. So you really need to have super strong typeless to be able to kill this guy, or charm him, ignore him and kill his teammates. But not everyone has that easy access to charm. So yeah, I think this guy's really good. I think he'll be really annoying. And again, he resists crack, which means I hate him, because it means he makes Valeria slightly worse. But yeah, if you have Debran already, you don't need this guy. But he is a super strong unit. But I think for PvP you probably want at least Awakening 3, because that 10%, that Dragon Scale is super important for tanking multiple hits and staying alive. So yeah, that's basically my opinions on all the current units that have come out recently. Another thing I want to say is that I think it's been a bit of a learning curve for me. I used to look at JPRTA and assume that we would follow similar trends. And I think recent trends in global have proven that to not be the case. I think the fact that An2cia is so popular, something I didn't foresee, because it's not what happened in JP. She definitely was strong, she definitely was popular, but she's basically omnipresent in global. And also, we auto a lot more in global than I see in JP, and also we use a lot more auto cover in global than JP. So I think for future unit reviews, if I'm going to talk about recommendations and stuff, I'm going to have to put a lot more disclaimers in there about what I predict the meta will be, because I don't think we can just look ahead to what JP has been doing in RTA and assume that it will be similar for us. I'll probably look at Trauminator and Mecha Worm and all this stuff in a separate video coming soon. But yeah, these are my opinions on the current RTA meta and the current RTA units. I hate An2cia. I love Valeria. Sorry if you love An2cia, but she's brain dead. Any win you ever got with An2cia, there's like a 99% chance you didn't deserve it. But it's okay. I forgive you. And yeah, that's about it. All right, peace out.